What up, everybody? This is Vincent here, Wandering Warrior, saying good morning to you from Pingdong, Taiwan. And I heard some of you guys haven't subscribed to me yet. Take care of that. Do yourself a favor. Do me a favor. It makes me feel good. And make sure you hit that bell icon. Get that notification. I'm trying to put out a video every week, maybe more. I want you guys to listen to them. I want you guys to watch. I want you guys to give feedback. Let's have dialogue about these things. Let's do it. So, speaking of that stuff, I've been getting a question. In fact, I get this question once in a while, and it's kind of annoying. And it's almost always from people who don't fight or don't do martial arts. And they always ask, what is the best martial art? If you can't tell, I'm not very enthusiastic about that question. But it's not coming from a bad place. These people genuinely want to know. It's kind of like this versus that type of thing that a lot of people on the internet like doing. Maybe this was a fun topic for me just starting out, but nowadays I just don't care for it. But I will address, what is the best martial art? The best martial art is the one that's used the best and most optimally. Yeah, that doesn't answer anything. I think the best way to take a look at this would be understanding combat. Combat is about movement, it's about imposing will, it's about using your body to dominate and destroy your opponent. As such, as we're moving through space-time, there are different ranges to this, right? We can break this up into three main phases. Long range / striking, close range / wrestling, and ground fighting, jujitsu, newaza, groundwork. There are phases in between, or transition phases, and that would sort of be like sticking, when you're not quite wrestling yet, but you're not just distanced out, just striking. And there is sort of a transition phase where someone's on the ground and someone's standing, right? But those are the three main phases, and I hope you guys agree with me. We're assuming unarmed combat. We're assuming a neutral environment and no obstructions. You're not in a cage, you're not in a ring, you're not fighting on a bridge or a boat. You're not on some crazy thing. It's just neutral, flat ground, unarmed. Both people are aware. No one's getting jumped. It's a fight. So, what is the ultimate martial art? What's the best martial art? A striking art, a very fine-tuned striking art, practiced to a high degree, is going to allow you to dominate the distance. No doubt. If you can incapacitate, KO, or kill the guy at distance, then you don't need to worry about the rest, right? So, Western boxing, certain styles of silat, karate, Chinese boxing, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, yeah, they can all teach you how to dominate that. But some of these arts don't do anything beyond that. They specialize. They go deep, but they are not broad. And as soon as they get close enough, a wrestler is going to shoot in, he's going to clinch up, and just going to dominate them. So, on to wrestling. The next phase is wrestling. And as soon as you are close enough for contact, you are close enough to grab and wrestle. And if you are the better wrestler, you can determine whether the fight goes to the ground and when the fight goes to the ground. But most wrestling systems around the world do not train you to strike, do not train you to deal with strikes, do not train you to use submissions. Now, these skills are very easy to add on to wrestling, but the fact of the matter is, if you're going to focus on wrestling, you tend to not focus on the other skills. And so, wrestling is great because you can fundamentally determine the range. You can dominate the range and pace of the fight oftentimes. And that's extremely important. But you don't necessarily have that ending power unless you take them down and throw them on their head, right? And assuming it's a hard surface. So, Okay, and then once you're on the ground, what happens? Ground fighting. And if there's somebody in the fight that has good ground fighting and the other person has none, the person who has none is basically being dragged down to the ground and drowned. This is basically an alligator grabbing you by the limb and doing the death roll. You're basically getting ambushed by the anaconda. That's it, right? However, if you have enough skills on the ground to get out of it and bring it back to wrestling and bring it back to striking, or if you were able to outstrike or out wrestle them completely from the get-go, the ground fighting only specialist is it's got a lot to get through in the fight. Yes, they can mitigate a lot of the advantages of size and strength and all that while they're on the ground, but they got to get there, right? So I'd say there's no best martial art, objectively speaking. There are better and worse martial artists, and there are more comprehensive and more specialized martial arts. But best is not the right word here. The premier art is striking, is efficiently and cleanly knocking out or incapacitating your opponent at range. The fundamental art that allows you to dominate the fight, no matter how close it is wrestling. There are many styles of wrestling. There are some styles of wrestling that go just deep on wrestling, like Mongol wrestling. And many styles of Chinese wrestling are similar. They focus more on the wrestling. Obviously, Greco-Roman, freestyle, folk style. Judo, on the other hand, is a little more versatile, right? Especially since they have newaza. That's where a lot of that came from in terms of jiu-jitsu. It's a fundamental art, foundational art. It allows you to dominate the fight. It's dominant, but it's not the premier art. You don't start off in wrestling usually, and oftentimes it will end up on the ground. And what do you do then? Now there's catch wrestling, yeah. There's judo. There's Brazilian jiu-jitsu. That's the ultimate art, right? Not ultimate because it's the best, but because the fight often will ultimately end there if it keeps going. Yes, people can stand back up. Yes, people can disengage. Yes, but if people are good at what they're doing, they will keep going that direction. Especially if you're the ground fighter and you know what you're doing. So if you're the ground fighter and they're not, and you're able to get it there, you're likely to finish it there. So I could say that that's the ultimate martial art. It's not the premier. I wouldn't say it's the foundational art either. And ultimately, as you can see, having basic proficiency in all of them is important, extremely important. But having high proficiency in at least one of them is equally important. You know, if you're a salad bowl martial art, that sounds kind of weird, but you know, if you're just picking and choosing techniques from each phase, unless you're some ultra talented prodigy, you know, with an amazing fight IQ, and even then, you're not the complete package. You may have skills in each phase, but you are not highly skilled in any one of them. And if you're only highly skilled at one, if you're an amazing Taekwondo fighter, but you have no wrestling or grappling skills, I'm sorry, but if you couldn't KO or destroy them with your feet, they're gonna take you down and hurt you. And if you only know jiu-jitsu, if you only know sport jiu-jitsu, and you always pull guard, you always jump for guard, you always give up takedowns just to get right on the ground, in a real fight, quote unquote, you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get punished. Now there's a few other factors. You put on gloves and hand wraps. Oh, striking gets even more powerful. You put on a hard surface, wrestling gets even more powerful. Bare knuckle, where they can't knock you out as easily, they can't hit quite as hard, and going to the ground can hurt, physically injure them. Wrestling becomes far better. And if you're not on a hard surface and it's bare knuckle and it's assured one-on-one, And especially if they're in like a cage-like setting where they can't escape, they can't keep spacing you out. Ground fighting has its strengths there. So I hope that sort of answers your question, and also sort of addresses the concept of best. There often isn't a best, but there is a best for certain situations. There's a best depending on what criteria, but objectively there often is no best. A lot of it's just how you train and how you use it, no matter the art. If it's legitimate, if it fulfills its role in its context, then it is good for what it's meant to do. The rest is up to you. Are you good at adapting? Are you good at training realistically? Are you good at having the warrior spirit where you are actually there to win? Ultimately, those become more important. So, no more of this best martial arts BS. Consider the criteria, consider the phases of combat, consider what your context is, and go from there. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you so much for tuning in on my journey, my thoughts, my little spiel there. I salute your journey. Peace.